Hi everyone, this is my review for Loki Season 2, Episode 3, 1893. And this is going to be a tough one for me because that was by far my least favorite episode this season. I just did not enjoy it as much as the first two. But one of my principles on this channel is to be honest about how I feel. So usually I love everything about this show, so in case you were wondering, I'm not pretending, I just really love everything about this show. And I don't particularly enjoy being negative about stuff and criticizing. I'd much rather be on the side of the people who are enjoying the content than, be one of these annoying reviewers who just don't like anything. Well, that was yet another really disappointing episode from a Marvel show. Why do we even continue watching? Because Marvel has been so bad these days and we are very, very far from the golden age of Avengers Endgame. There is one very simple reason why I didn't like this episode. Way too much He Who Remains, not enough everyone else. So if you were already following this channel during season 1, you may remember that I found myself in a minority of viewers who did not like the season finale. And it was a massive disappointment for me because I had really loved every single episode of that show until then. So it was a bit of a bummer really. I loved the first 5 episodes to bits. I absolutely adored each one of them. And then the big finale was a huge disappointment to me. And the main reason was exactly the same. I just hate it when a show that has very little screen time to tell a story, it's just 6 episodes of less than an hour. I hate it when they waste so much time on a character that to me is not central to the story. I'm aware that it's a very personal reaction, but while I love pretty much every single character on this show and every single cast member as well, I just don't like He Who Remains. I'm sorry, I don't like him. I don't like the character. I don't like the way he talks. I don't like the way Jonathan Major plays him. I don't like the way he tries to be funny, but it never lands with me. The humor in this show usually really works with me, but this character, I find him cringeworthy, but I don't find him funny. And most of all, I do not like how disconnected he feels to the other characters of the show that I really care about. For me, he never really fit in that show. And I know he has a lot of fans. It's really a mystery to me why people are raving about his performance. I just don't find it very good. And especially in this episode, I thought it was pretty terrible. And I thought he was the only one that, I felt this way about. I love every performance on this show except him. It was the same after the finale. I was just really unimpressed, but everyone else seemed to think it was brilliant. And I know Tom Hiddleston certainly did. He made statements about how brilliant Jonathan Major was in that role, and I was just... Is he though? And it's not because he's quirky, because I love quirky. I love Obi. Obi's quirky as hell. Casey is quirky. Pretty much everyone on this show is quirky in some way. Loki's definitely quirky too. Mobius is quirky. I love all of them. But the way He Who Remains is trying to act quirky is very grating to me. I just don't like it. And the performance to me is hammy and kind of forced and cringy, and he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the cast. At least that's really just how I feel about him. And I think there's also maybe just a major disagreement here over what the show is supposed to be about. Is it the Loki show or is it the Kang Show? The fact that there are very contrasted reactions, it makes me realize once again that there are various types of people watching this show with very different expectations in mind. There are those who watch mostly for Loki and there are those who watch mostly for Kang. And I'm not saying it's not possible to enjoy both at the same time. I'm sure lots of viewers enjoy both. But still, I can see this divide in the reactions to the various episodes. For example, I've seen a lot of people say that they didn't like the first 2 episodes because they felt there was no clear direction, they were confused about what Loki was doing, and they were confused about the TVA and the direction about the TVA. Some felt nothing was happening in episode 2, for example. And what they mean by this is that they care mostly about the TVA/Kang plot, and they felt episode 2 was not actually moving this forward. It's true that the bigger plot, the TVA multiverse plot, was not really advanced much by episode 2, but personally I loved it because it advanced character development, and that's mostly my motivation for watching this show. And this tendency to emphasize the TVA Kang plot is also connected to an attitude to the MCU that isn't really mine, you know, one that is really concerned with connections between the various works, with Easter eggs everywhere. I really don't care much about Easter eggs. I'm really interested in this series for the quality of the writing, character development. That's what I like. I don't really care whether it connects to other projects, especially when these projects so far have been very underwhelming, to say the least. And some people say, yes, but he's the main villain, he's supposed to have screen time, and the TVA is the real story. But I don't agree with this. The TVA is an arena. That's what it is for me. The TVA is not the main story of this show. This show is called Loki. It's a show about Loki. The TVA, the multiverse saga, Kang, everything that's connected to it. They provide an arena in which the character can face difficulties, conflicts, and can grow. That is the purpose of this. Therefore, it is not meant to be center stage. Yes, the villain needs to get some degree of development, but the villain is not the main character of a show. This show may not be just about Tom Hiddleston's Loki. Some people complained, for example, that Sylvie was taking too much space. I had no problem with that because the series kind of treated Loki as a concept, not just as one character. And Sylvie is a Loki. The series really relied on this idea that there are Lokis. Loki is a concept. And I think sometimes the show seems to be trying to be two things at the same time. They're trying to be the Loki show and the Kang show at the same time because they want to satisfy that part of the audience that is here mostly for Kang. And it feels a bit disconnected in those moments. I think it creates some pacing problems and it creates a strange dissonance to it, I think, when it does that. So when people ask, what is this show about? For me, clearly it's about Loki's growth as a character. And it's about asking all these great questions about fate and destiny and being the author of your own story. That's also a major theme in this work. And this season, season 2, is clearly going to be about how he's going to make up with Sylvie. For me, it's very clear that this is where they're going. And this is the heart of the show. And Kang or his variants are basically an obstacle on the road to reaching growth and finding love, friendship, a better life, a sense of purpose, all these things. And honestly, I had kind of moved on from this disappointment with the finale, and I had accepted that, well, the big bad would be Kang, but originally I was really disappointed that they did not decide to make the big villain another Loki. And to me, it would have made so much more sense. It was a big theory at the time, and at first, they claimed that they had never considered this. They claimed that it had been the plan all along to have Kang as the big villain. And at the time, I kind of called bullshit on that. I said, I don't believe that. It just feels like they shoehorned this storyline into a show that was not about Kang. And it feels like they did it for external reasons and not internal consistency. You know, this show is so consistent usually. And this just feels like it's been brought from outside. And actually, last week, there were a few articles released that kind of admitted that they had considered Tom Hiddleston as the man behind the curtain, He Who Remains. And actually, I don't even think they needed to have another Tom Hiddleston Loki. They could just have used another great actor, great addition to the cast in season 1, who was absolutely perfect, and that was Richard E. Grant. And I would have loved to see Richard E. Grant as a villain. I'm sure he would have killed it. I think pretty much everyone was super impressed with his performance, and that was such a missed opportunity that they chose not to go in that direction. And they did give a justification for this choice in the article I read. They said that making He Who Remains another Loki would have given the sense that the universe was too small, which I don't think is very convincing. You know, Loki's a god, and also, it would have been very consistent with the show because the show is entirely based on this idea of the loop. It's becoming increasingly obvious. Lots of people have pointed out how even visually they have loops all the time. Several characters, Mobius, the Mobius strip is a sort of loop even though it's twisted. Ouroboros is a snake biting his own tail, so he's definitely a loop. The time loops also are absolutely central to this show. And Loki means loop. Loki has many possible meanings, but loop is one of them. And so having a Loki at the end of time being the villain with other Lokis fighting him, that would have been the ultimate consistent choice to make. It would have completed the loop. It would have been the perfect choice. Whereas He Who Remains, as he was integrated in this show, in my opinion, does not organically integrate into the story. He feels like he's from another story, and I don't think it ever really worked, this magic between him and the other characters. Now I'll move on to stuff that I did like, and if you've been following my channel for a while, then you know I love Mobius, and I think Mobius has amazing chemistry with almost all of the other characters. He has great chemistry with Loki, we saw that again this week, but I also really enjoyed the dialogues between Mobius and Ravonna, because you can feel there's history there. You can feel that they've been working together for so long, or they had been working together for so long, and there's some built-up frustration with each other. They're very different people, and you can tell that, well, they had a good working relationship for a while, but it took some compromise, and now that she has betrayed him, this all comes to the surface, and I really enjoyed the kind of venomous conversations they were having.
After all those years of doing your dirty work, cleaning up your messes, making the hard decisions you never had the nerve to make.
And it was kind of nice to see Mobius like this too, because he's usually such a good-natured, laid-back, debonair kind of guy. And here you could see he was frustrated and bitter.
Mobius, you're the one who sided with a Loki over me. Don't play the teamwork card on me now.
Well, can I play the you tried to kill me card? Does that get me anywhere?
And a bit passive-aggressive too, I really enjoyed that. Now I guess I have to address the Miss Minutes plot. I don't actually have much to say about it that hasn't been said already. I enjoyed it, I have to say. I kind of enjoyed it. I think it probably took too much space in the episode, but I enjoyed it. It was creepy, it was kind of unexpected as well. I think the one thing I like about Miss Minutes is how she keeps surprising me, because probably I underestimate her. She's an AI. I should know better. I've seen The 100 season 4. I just keep getting surprised by her. I'm like, what? She's that bad? It's always interesting to see how far she's really willing to go, and I thought the twists were pretty good. They were quite surprising and a bit horrifying at the same time. And now I'm going to move on to Sylvie, and Sylvie's storyline I think was really good in this episode, and I wish it had been given more time. And again, what I really love about this show is that the writing is so consistent, and at the same time it's surprising. So it's a perfect combination when you can surprise the audience while remaining consistent. For me, it's the hallmark of great writing. And for example, Sylvie sparing Timely, who is a He Who Remains variant, was surprising. We did not necessarily expect that, but it was extremely consistent because he gave her arguments she could not disregard if she was going to be faithful to her own principles.
I haven't done anything.
Oh, you will.
That isn't me. That you don't know me. I can make my own choices.
Sylvie wanted to give free will to everyone. She asserted through her actions that she was her own person and that she would not follow the script that the TVA had assigned to her just because she was a Loki variant. She would not do what she was supposed to do. She insisted that variants were allowed to have their own lives and should not be discarded and dismissed just because they were like spare versions of a being, if you want. And in this case, well, Timely is not yet He Who Remains, so he's not technically done anything wrong yet, so it makes no sense to punish him for things he hasn't done. And during season 1, especially after the finale, many people called Sylvie selfish, and they claimed that her choice to kill He Who Remains and risk the multiverse, because she had been warned against this, that it was selfish, that she was doing it for herself, for her own revenge. And I did not agree with this interpretation. I contended that, yes, maybe she wanted her own revenge for personal reasons, but she also really believed in this ideal. She believed it was the right thing to do, morally. And I love the fact that episode 3 confirms this. She sticks to her principles, even though it gets in the way of her personal revenge. She wants to kill him very badly, but at the same time, she hears him out. She listens to his arguments, and she's forced to recognize that they're valid. So Sylvie is being faithful to her principles, and she also has real personal growth there because she has come to understand that revenge does not really satisfy her that much. You know, maybe she is not lying when she says she's happy working at McDonald's, experiencing a normal life that she was denied, but at the same time, we know that vengeance is not supposed to make someone feel whole, and she admits it point blank when she talks to Ravonna, and she says,
"It's crippling, that kind of obsession. I'm starting to realize that."
So that's a major element of character growth for Sylvie there. And I really loved the fact that in spite of this, she still kind of took revenge on Renslayer, but she did it in a way that felt like poetic justice by sending her to the end of time. Okay, take your throne. You want your throne. Go and get it. It was maybe a bit cruel, especially with the body of He Who Remains rotting there, but it was fitting. And this episode also seems to be revealing in a way that's maybe not so subtle but pretty consistent again, that Ravonna may be the real antagonist for Sylvie. It's not really He Who Remains, it is Ravonna Renslayer. There was this moment in which Ravonna yelled, "I am order!" And then boom, Sylvie comes in with her green magic and throws her to the ground. And Sylvie is the goddess of chaos, so here you have chaos versus order.
All that matters is order versus chaos. I'm order.
No.
So maybe not very subtle, but a return to one of the main oppositions of this show, order versus chaos, and maybe a realization for Sylvie that she has found her real antagonist there. Now I want to come to the Loki-Sylvie relationship and all the angst and frustration in this episode. So it's very frustrating here for all the shippers who want them to get back together because they're going along a very classic romantic arc. It's nothing unheard of that they fight, they can't communicate, and then eventually I'm pretty sure they will make up. But here the problem is mostly quite simple. Each one is convinced that the other doesn't care. Sylvie is furious and convinced that Loki only cares about the TVA and not about her. Meanwhile, Loki, who kind of has self-esteem problems, it's an established trait, just like what Renslayer says about Lokis who change sides. It's a well-documented behavioral trait. So Loki already has a problem with self-esteem, and he's heard Sylvie confirm that he was the last person she wanted to see, and she was happy without him on her branch timeline. So his conclusion is that if he loves her, and if he is to be selfless, as he has learned to be in season 1, then the right thing to do is just leave her alone. And I think it's actually pretty beautiful that Loki respects Sylvie. He does not want to push her, he wants to be, respectful. But it's very frustrating for everyone who wants them to get back together, obviously. Yet there was a major evolution in their attitude to each other, which probably bodes well for the future. There was an echo of episode 2 when Loki and Mobius went back to the TVA, so they opened the time door to go back to the TVA, and Sylvie hesitated, looked at Loki, and this time there was the same look. And again, Loki did not ask her to follow. He let her make her choice, which I think is a good thing. But this time, she let him take Timely away, and she told him,
"Don't make me regret this."
And this is a big thing. For Sylvie, this is a lot of trust. She's someone whose major problem is that she cannot trust. Remember the finale of season 1.
You can't trust. And I can't be trusted.
This is their main obstacle, the main problem they have to overcome in order to be back together. And so this is hugely significant, even though she seems to be a bit wary by saying, "Don't make me regret this," but that still means she's trusting him with this. She's trusting his judgment. She's letting him take Timely back to the TVA against her better judgment because she feels Timely needs to be given a chance and because she trusts Loki to do this. So yes, it is frustrating, but at the same time, it is moving forward very clearly. There was a big, big event there. Now to finish various remarks. And there was a lot to love, in fact, in this episode. There were great things about it. The way it looked amazing still, consistently. The series looks amazing. The sets are beautiful. The costumes, the 19th century costumes on everyone. Ravonna looked amazing. Loki also. Mobius. The music as well. It still sounds great. Natalie Holt is still doing such a good job. She's just killing it. Well, there was this really cool intro with kind of ragtime piano. I also loved the way they changed the title music. When the title Loki appeared, it was a different music. Generally, the episode just sounded great. I knew Obi was going to be a big player, but the orange book that everyone was laughing at now has been revealed to be one of the key elements in He Who Remain's plan to control the universe, so that's pretty funny. And it's also interesting to think of, it's a bit of a chicken and egg question. What came first? Was it the book, or, how did that work? I really enjoyed all the magic, obviously, and this really confirms what I said in my video about Loki and daggers, in which I explained that daggers were kind of, the weapons Loki used when he had not yet embraced his identity as a magician. And this time he's growing in confidence, and now he's using almost only magic. I also really liked his pompous, "You're a confidence trickster."
You're a confidence trickster.
Luminary is the word you're looking
Luminary,
for, friend.
of course,
Yes.
forgive me.
I, for one, did not even know that con man meant confident trickster, so I've learned something. And it's even greater because Loki is the ultimate trickster. Now, regarding Ravonna, it's pretty obvious that He Who Remains must have wiped her memories at one point because she did not remember all of this. So that's a pretty big betrayal in itself, but I suspect there must have been something bigger because Miss Minutes says you're going to be very angry, so I suppose it's not just the wiping of the memories that will come up. And I have to admit that there were a few moments when I enjoyed Timely. I really laughed out loud when he called Loki and Mobius the wizard gentleman and his butler. That was great. I did laugh at the lower taxes joke. I thought that one was efficient, it was funny.
My lab is in Wisconsin.
Go.
Lower taxes.
And I did think his acting was convincing in one scene, which was the one when he was pleading for his life with Sylvie. That was probably his best scene this episode, I think. And I hope that was genuine. I've seen people claim that Timely's nerdy, awkward personality was just an act to make himself look very inoffensive so that people would take him back to the TVA and not suspect that he was actually planning to take over. I hope this isn't true. One of the reasons why people were saying that is that the speech impediment that Jonathan Majors is doing is very unconvincing. Some people think it's meant to be fake, that Timely's pretending to have a stammer, and I don't know. I hope it's not the case because it would undermine some of the best things about this episode. It would undermine one idea that I really like about this show. I've made many videos about it now, which is this idea that variants are not the same person, and even in this case, if Timely is destined to be He Who Remains and he's technically just the same person at a different stage, he hasn't yet made these choices and he can still change, so free will. And it would also undermine, in a big way, Sylvie finally granting trust, because then if it turns out that she was wrong to trust Loki, then it kind of destroys the whole thing. Unless the idea is that Sylvie gave her trust to Loki, things are going to turn out wrong because eventually Timely will betray them, but she needs to learn that even though trust is a risk, you still need to trust sometimes. But I don't know, I'm not very convinced. So to sum up, I actually really liked some parts of this episode, Mobius and Ravonna in particular. The Miss Minutes story was pretty good. I liked seeing Ravonna again because I like Ravonna as a character and I love the actress as well. Gugun Batherall is really good. I missed B15, but I really liked Sylvie's storyline. I just wish it had been given more space and less space had been devoted to He Who Remains, because I don't believe this is very well used screen time, to be honest. So I am aware that because of the choice they made to have Kang in the show, He Who Remains will have to be important, but I just hope he doesn't take too much space in the rest of season 2. So that's it for today. I will see you next week for episode 4, and in the meantime you can, if you want, check out my older videos where I spoke about this already. There was the episode 6 reaction where you just can see how disappointed I was with that finale. So I got a lot of dislikes for that, but As I said, I'm honest. If you don't like my opinions, feel free to leave me a comment or feel free to just not watch, you know. So have a great week. Bye bye.